just being proud of what you've achieved, being proud of yourself and the decisions you've made, even the mistakes, being proud of your mistakes. I've made so many mistakes. That is part of the journey.
Well, it's also, I believe, people who are really successful know that it takes the failures to get
Oh,
there.
yeah.
You're listening to the You Can and You Will show, a podcast that empowers female leaders, high achievers, female executives, and artists to be confident, to overcome their obstacles, and live that exceptional and successful career and life. My name is Catherine Louise, and I'm a business and mindset mentor and communication expert, best known for mentoring female leaders, executives, and artists so that they can flourish in their career and life. And you can and you will. I'm sitting down to share the tools to create that success and lifestyle and how to make an impact. Hi, and welcome back to a brand new episode here on the podcast You Can and You Will. I'm your host. I'm Catherine Louise. I'm a business and mindset mentor. And today I have the honor of having this beautiful lady by my side, Louise Lechat. Do you want to introduce yourself to our listeners and viewers?
Yes. So I am Louise. I'm British, but I live in Florida in America with my husband who's French, and we have two daughters. And I am a creative entrepreneur and life and mindset coach.
And we have so much in common. By the way, I
So
love your
much.
first name.
That was one of the first things I was like,
That was
wow.
only the first thing. We have so much in common. Okay, so we start with the first name, Louise.
Yes.
Then you are a mindset mentor and really emphasize on potential. And people may wonder why I would love to bring somebody on my podcast who is so much like
Mm.
me,
Yeah,
but I
yeah.
think it is perfect. I think it makes so much sense. When I got to know you and I'm following you on Instagram, and by the way, I suggest y'all follow her. Louise is just so inspirational. I love it so much. I think it makes sense and it is almost like it enhances our work when we come together and
Yes.
share. And I got goosebumps right now. So
Yes, so bye.
please give us a little bit of insight for somebody not knowing you just yet. Like, what
hmm
means creative entrepreneur? What do you do? What does a typical day in your life look like?
Yeah, so creative entrepreneur it came from, I originally started working in finance when I graduated, and I absolutely hated it. And I knew from that point I was never going to have a 9 to 5 job, but I couldn't figure out exactly how do people do it? How do they not work for somebody? And at the time, I was living and working in London. I then had an opportunity to move to Singapore, and I kind of just jumped to the chance. I was 24. I didn't have a mortgage. I didn't have kids. I had no responsibilities. I was like, what do I have to lose? Worst case, you go there, you don't like it, you come back.
Right.
So I went there with basically no money. I ended up by chance working for a photographer. And in London, I was on like an amazing salary, amazing bonuses. I was so unhappy. And when I started working for the photographer, I was earning like minimum wage, but I was so happy to go to work every day. And that was the first time at 24 that I was like, wow, okay, you can actually really enjoy what you do, even though you're not making the money you want to make. And so
Mm.
then at that point, I was like, well, how could I make money, but also doing something I enjoyed? And I guess that's what was the first kind of like spark of like, okay, how can I make this work? So then I ended up I wanted to study photography more. So I moved to Paris, and that's where to study photography. And that's where I ended up meeting my husband, who was also a photographer. And then that's when we started our first business together. And I think starting kind of like I was 26 or 27, um, at that point, I was just, you know, when you just throw yourself into something and you don't care about the risks. And when you have nothing to lose, it's so much easier to dive in because you have nothing to lose.
Yes.
And from there, we did a photography studio, we did advertising photography, and then we started to get into real estate, Airbnb, short-term rentals, and then like lots of other little businesses in between. So it's not, I started saying creative entrepreneur because it wasn't just one particular thing. It was like, I'm down to start any business.
It sounds like I love that. So I heard people say calling that a serial
Oh
entrepreneur.
yeah, yeah.
Almost sounds like a serial assassin.
Yeah, 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 it does.
But I just get it so much because I have so many interests and it was so hard for me to choose for such a long time. Up until
Mm,
then, I really found my home in the work that I do right now.
mm,
And the other day, you posted a reel, and that really just stuck with me forever. You posted a reel, I believe it was talking about how you used to believe you really had to hustle and bustle and do the
mm,
grinding and all that. And now today, you know, that's not what it would have to look like, but instead you can spend time with the kids. And I know you're such a mom too. Like you
mm.
have two kids, and I love seeing how you share about them because I have three kids too.
Yeah.
And I just feel it in my bones. Like I love that so much, how you really put that out there. So do you want to share? Like how that transition from really drastic mindset changes to really
Mm,
believing, oh yeah, you really have to hustle here.
mm.
And then coming into this new belief system and making it work on top with kids. Like, how did
Yeah.
you do it?
Yeah, so I think like most people, I was conditioned to believe that you couldn't be like a working mom and a stay-at-home mom. You had to pick either or.
Yes.
Um, you couldn't make a lot of money if you were a part-time stay-at-home mom. You know, like you had to do kind of like um the marketing, you know, like selling essential oils and stuff, which is nothing wrong with that. But you know, like I really felt like, oh, you have to pick once you have kids, you can't do both. And obviously before I had kids, I was used to working like 24/7 because I loved it. It didn't feel like work when you
Yes.
love it so much.
Mm-hmm.
But then once I had my eldest daughter, who's now 5, I started to think, how can I actually be fully present with her? Because as any entrepreneur knows, you know, your mind never stops. You're always
No.
thinking about like, oh, you have serial entrepreneur. Oh, I have the. You're out with your kids in a playground and you see an idea and you're like, wow, actually, I could probably do that. How can I do that? And um, and I knew that I didn't want my kids, especially when they were younger, to be in a daycare, you know, like all week, which there's again
Yes.
nothing wrong with that if that's what your choice is. But for me, I really wanted to spend the time with them when they were younger, but I also didn't want to stop working.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, I feel that um, a lot of the time I was thinking I was at my computer doing stuff because I felt like I should, rather than, okay, I have 4 hours this morning. What can I knock out? What do I need to do in my day? How can I delegate the more simple tasks to other people so that things are still running when I'm at the park with my kids or I'm getting a coffee with them? And so for me, it was sort of reframing and really auditing my life to a point where I was like, okay, where am I just kind of like wasting time? Where am I doing stuff where I feel like I should look like I'm doing stuff because like hustling?
Yeah.
And where can I cut that out and actually spend that time with my kids and be able to kind of, I guess if I'm honest, I don't fully switch off, but I am fully present with them.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I'm not on my phone. You know, I'll occasionally check emails and stuff, but I'm not, you know, sat on my phone while I'm doing stuff with them. And so once I realized, okay, I can actually, once I've set everything up and I can actually take a step back, it was such a relief,
Hmm.
because then I started to realize, like, wow, I can actually do both. You can have it all, even though you're told you can't.
Yeah.
And taking that step back and having kind of like that white space also made me feel way more creative, because I
Hmm.
had so many more ideas, because I was
Yes.
stepping back rather than just being, okay, what can I work on now? Like, what content can I make? Like, what? And it was such a relief. It was such a kind of like weight off my shoulders. I know you feel the same.
100%. I like
Yeah.
keep nodding, nodding because I so get it. The other week, I was asked in an interview, like, why I actually worked all the way through having three kids. And I was like,
Mm.
well, because it never felt like working
Yeah,
with my
yeah,
clients, but it's an extension of who I am. If I would
yeah.
have not done it, a part of me would have died. And I love my kids so much. And
Mm.
two things you just mentioned stood out to me. First of all, delegating. I think it
Hmm.
is a big one, even for women who don't have kids, because one of the first things you really should do is start delegating out stuff which are
Yes,
not in your zone of genius, because it really doesn't
yes,
help nobody if you still go ahead and do it. And then, second, really also getting away from the desk,
yeah.
because
That's
you gain
huge.
so much more energy, inspiration, and
Yeah.
as you just said, creative ideas. And I was
Oh.
like, she's hitting every single point. Like that is so true. But and I really want to stress that, not quote unquote just for moms,
No,
but
no,
really
for
women
everyone.
in general. Yes,
Yeah,
because for to us, then it is spending time with our kids. For women who might have not kids just yet or never have, whatever
yeah,
they want to go
yeah, yeah,
for,
yeah.
spending time with friends, loved ones, going to the park, whatever. I think
Hmm.
it is such a more rich life. And
Mm.
also, what people underestimate, and I bet you agree on that, like when you have that outside inspiration and creative idea sparking, you will get more successful
Oh,
way
yes.
quicker, because when you're burned out, nothing good is gonna come from that place, right?
Yeah. And I think as well, like, I think as a tendency, because like we've all been to school and you're kind of conditioned to be like, you sit at a desk and you do your job. And I realized at some point that I'd become like an employee of my own business. And that's not
Ooh,
what an entrepreneur is, I
no.
felt like I should be like working 9 till whatever. Um, and and that's
Wow.
when I took a step back, and I was like, wait, hold on, I'm acting like an employee of myself, feeling like I
Yeah.
should be there just because like society says, like 9 to 5 or 40 hours a week or whatever. And when I thought like that, I was like, yeah, actually I got into being an entrepreneur because I didn't want that, and then I've actually created that for myself.
That's a big one.
Mm,
Because yes, you're so right. This is literally like society programming.
yeah, yeah,
To
yeah,
ever
100%.
negotiate holiday with yourself.
Yeah, 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 exactly.
Like I really need some more holidays. How about that?
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
I love that. It is so important to hear that, because also you can be so much more successful if you work less, but in
Oh,
those hours be more productive.
yeah. And it just brings so much freedom and creativity when you have that space. And yeah, like
Yeah.
the creative juices start flowing when you're on a walk, or because you have that space between you and your business.
What I love about you so much, talking about being a creative entrepreneur, is two things. First of all, a whole lot of people believe they would have to restrict literally themselves
Hmm.
onto one thing they do as an entrepreneur. And
Hmm.
I think you are the perfect example that just really, actually, for people who are like multi-passionate, it's not even serving. Like you
Mm.
almost kill your own flow and energy. You don't want to do that. I'm not sure. Well, I bet you've heard about human design.
Yes.
And there, like, I'm a manifesting generator. If you don't
Yeah.
know what I'm talking about, take a look into that for our listeners.
Yes. It's so good.
It's so good and so true.
Yeah.
like manifesting generators, they have a whole bunch of different ideas, probably all at the same time. They just really have to work on that in order to get that creative
Yes.
juice flowing almost. And then also, what I was thinking as you were speaking about it, it's like you would tell a woman who's just starting out being an entrepreneur or running her own business that you really want to have different income streams,
Hmm.
either passive, most preferably. And you talking about having different businesses, being a creative entrepreneur, that actually only makes sense because, when one business is like running low for whatever kind of circumstances, you would still have the other ones running, right?
Yes, and that was a huge thing for us when the pandemic happened
Uh-huh.
because we were
Yeah.
still really heavily into advertising photography, which was flying around the world. So travel stopped. And that kind of cut that income like straight away, which was
Mhm.
actually fine because it had been in my mind for a long time. We have all our eggs in one basket here, and I
Mhm.
wanted to diversify, and that's
Mhm.
why I got into real estate. So we weren't fully into real estate where we could survive off real estate when the pandemic happened, but it wasn't generating enough at that point. But that was a really moment where I was like, yeah, you definitely need multiple income streams because even if another pandemic's not going to happen, you just never know.
No,
So yeah, that's huge.
it's a big one.
Yeah.
I love this conversation. So, since I know potential is a biggie for you and for me
Yes.
too,
Yes.
please share your insight on potential and why it is so important to you talking about that, working with people about on that.
Because I think when I think so many people have potential, and
Hmm.
so many people have the potential to do big things. And when you let fear and self doubt and all the other things creep in, other people's self doubt is huge. I speak to so many people that say, my mum said it won't work, or my friends all laughed at my idea, or whatever. And that's where you have to find the potential in yourself and that you have to believe in yourself. And that's where I think a lot of people maybe realize a little bit, but don't realize as much as once you've pushed through those mental blocks, it becomes so easy to just be like, oh, I've seen a business idea. I'm just going to set it up because you believe in yourself so much. You have so much confidence in yourself that nothing is going to stop you. And once you reach that point, it's so like mentally freeing. So we talk about freedom in sense of like time freedom and all those things,
Hmm.
but actually mental freedom is even bigger than all of those things because once you have that freedom in your mind, I mean, you can just go to the moon.
That's so true. And also, I feel like it just then suddenly all makes sense.
Yes,
Because
yeah,
when people are not living in their potential, they're merely ever happy. I haven't seen a person, living a life, they just feel, oh, something is just not right over here. Like
yeah. You
something
can
is
you can
missing.
even hear it in the way that people speak.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you
yeah,
sense it in their energy and how
yeah,
they walk, how they talk, you see it in the face.
yeah,
Like
yeah,
something is missing then, but this is the one thing, and this is why I just really want to screaming out in the wall, like they don't even know because
they're
of
yeah,
society programming, because of
yeah,
how they grew up with the belief systems of the family and everything.
yeah,
They would not even question it. This is why I love us talking about that
yeah.
too, because I really think it is a form of education almost to
Hmm.
literally say, hey, if you feel like something is off, trust that feeling because
Yeah.
then something is off.
Yeah, because
You
the
get
more
that?
you push that down
Yes.
and push down your intuition, the more kind
Mhm.
of like dull it gets. So anything that comes, you start doubting yourself and whereas the more you listen to your intuition, the stronger it gets. The more when you have that feeling of like, this could be like something big, You just
Yes.
go for it. There's not even, you don't even have to ask people for an opinion. You know, when I have an idea, apart from speaking to my husband about it, I'm just like, go, you know?
I love that. Yeah, because it's natural to you, but I also feel like that, that kind of hustling and bustling culture we just talked about is so
Mm,
big that people will still believe that if they would follow that inner nudge,
mm.
they couldn't pay their mortgage
Yeah.
or couldn't pay colleges for the kids, all that. But it really takes that kind of knowing and probably again education that on that side of being fulfilled and in your potential is where success is automatically coming along
Yeah.
with it.
It's literally just waiting for you. Once you've
Yeah.
got through there, the success is just there, like, take me.
Okay, I take it all.
Yeah,
And there's
exactly.
nothing wrong about that. It
No,
shows
yeah.
alignment to its purest form, right?
Mm. And
Ah,
that's something actually I've learned since living in America, because we moved here in 2019, is obviously you have like every kind of every kind of like rich, poor, you know, in America. You have such a broad range.
yeah.
But the ones that are successful, they are never embarrassed about their success. And that was something I learned as like being British, we're really, you know, like modest and, you know, you don't
Mhm.
talk about your success and you kind of keep it under the radar. And I think it's very European as well.
Yeah.
Whereas Americans are like, yeah, I bought 10 houses, you know, and they're like so proud of it. And I was like, why are we not like that? Because the more that you're telling yourself, and it's not about showing off, you know, there's a
No,
fine line, but
right.
it's just being proud of what you've achieved, being proud of yourself and the decisions you've made, even the mistakes, being proud of your mistakes. I've made so many mistakes. I've lost
Ah,
so much
same.
money, you know, and I don't care because I'm like, that is part of the journey.
Well, it's also, I believe, people who are really successful know that it takes the failures to get
Oh
there.
yeah.
And
Yeah.
the people who really are so successful also aren't afraid to share the journey.
Yes, exactly.
And this is and yes, you're right, it's very European. And
Yeah.
there's nothing positive about that, to be
No,
quite
yeah.
honest. And I'm like, I'm trying to raise my kids, telling them also that it takes so much practice to really become a pro and whatever. Talking about
Yes.
Lego, talking about
Yes.
school,
Yes.
and then really that it takes that failures are actually serving you. I really believe this is almost an American thing. Well, obviously not everywhere in America as
Yeah, yeah,
well,
yeah.
like, right?
Yeah, yeah.
But I think Europeans haven't gotten around that kind of mindset just yet. I'm not saying
Mm.
everybody, I'm just saying.
Yeah, it's not across the board. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it's like it almost seems like really successful people are most jumping towards failures because they know it's a part of growing and expanding.
Yeah.
It's actually the only way you can grow and expand. And other people are like, failures are like a doomed thing. Like, give it up.
Yeah.
It's done.
Yeah.
We're done here. And this is when successful people just be like, oh, amazing. Let's push even more
Yeah.
towards it sounds like a minor mindset kind of situation, but it
Mm.
really makes all of the difference.
Oh, huge. It's such a difference. I always say to my 5-year-old, that your words are your spells. That's why it's called
Ooh.
spelling. And because it's like what you're saying to yourself
Mm-hmm.
or what you're saying out loud is what you become. So if you're telling yourself, you know, oh, I'm going to fail at that, or I won't be able to do that, or you're telling your subconscious that you won't be able to do that. Whereas if you're saying, okay, I'm going to try, I'm going to, you know, try to climb up the hill, or I don't know, something, you're already teaching them that the same thing that we should know, but that
Yes.
we've relearned is your words become your reality, basically.
Absolutely. I have to
Mm,
share a story here because when you say that this is what you're teaching your daughters, my son, my eldest one, that was
yeah,
like a year ago. He was 11 at that point. He was like, something didn't work he was trying to do. And he was like, oh, I'm so dumb. And then my daughter, at that time, 5 years old, walked up to
yeah,
him, was like, don't even tell that yourself, or you're going to believe that. And
Oh,
I'm
that's
like,
amazing.
oh my goodness. Like,
Oh, that gives me goosebumps.
yeah, because
Yeah,
it is like exactly that age. And it's like, and we parents, we know that. Like, you
yeah,
can teach your children right about everything, but what they will really learn is like how you act, how you
yes,
handle failures, how you speak to yourself. And I love that you teach that to your children because it
yeah.
really makes all of the difference for
Huge.
sure.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, I love
yeah.
that because I also believe like it's not just society programming and the things that, that they learn and not learn when they
Mm.
are at school, but really like how you prepare them for life almost.
Yeah, yeah, it's life. It's how they even how you are acting and speaking when they go to school,
Mm,
they're going to have a different mindset to another child that maybe is taught a different way. And so you're already giving them a head start in the sense of kind of critical thinking and how they can approach a situation in a more positive way
yes,
than another child. Yeah.
I love that. If you have a client and let's
Hmm.
say she's just starting out and she really wants to be an entrepreneur and maybe
Hmm.
she doesn't have all that knowledge about mindset,
Hmm.
what would you suggest her first thing?
I think the first thing I always say to clients is money mindset, because I think
Biggie.
that is huge. And that really changed things for me when I started seeing money as energy and neutral and checking. It's not scary to check your bank balance even if you're starting out. You need to know like what's coming in, what's coming out, but just be neutral to it when you get like a client or you sell something. Be appreciative of it, but see it as more like an energetic flow. And I think
Yes,
once you've figured out the money mindset and you've got that down where you're not kind of obsessing over money coming in, or I've got all these expenses and I haven't made a sale yet, or I haven't got a client yet. Once you kind of like move past that, then you can start working on other mindsets. But I think money mindset is so huge, just again because of like the lack of financial education that
yeah.
everyone gets at school. um because I think that puts you in a more confident position already, where you're like, okay, I know the money's going to come. What I'm spending on supplies or product or whatever is going to come back to me. And changing that mindset first is always huge for me.
I love that one because it
Mm,
is such a common thing, even among wealthy people.
mm,
Like money blocks is a real thing. And how would you suggest working through money blocks? Because I know talking about money mindset,
mm.
right with it comes money blocks. How do you work through them most? Like, what do you like
Yeah,
best?
so I always look at, what have you been taught as a child? Is money scarce? Is money something we don't talk about? Is money, like a kind of like, yeah, taboo subject. I think working through those childhoods or the way you brought up money beliefs, that's the first thing, because that is what has programmed you to where you're at right now. And then you start going through, what are your fears around money, where can we kind of like push through those, where okay, you don't need to be scared that you're not going to make money, you don't need to be. And then that's kind of like how I start, and then like move through to, you know I think like so many people put a ceiling on how much they can earn,
Oh, yeah.
like, oh, if I made 100,000, like I would be so happy. And I'm like, but why not a million?
Yeah.
Thinking big, think big,
Yeah, well, like, why would you limit yourself? Right?
exactly.
Yeah.
Think as big as you can go, like it's crazy to me. It's so easy, I know, once you've gone through it, because I've had friends that I've done this with, and at the beginning they're like, oh, I don't want to spend anything. Oh, that's expensive. Or that's, and then like we work through it, and they're like, why was I even thinking like that in the beginning? But it is just like getting over those sort of like programmed
Yeah.
childhood beliefs and around money. Yeah.
And if you have an issue with like just even picturing, as you said, let's say 100,000, if you have issues with like, it's even more possible. You know, I bet you know Gabby Bernstein, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Obviously.
yeah, yeah.
She's always saying, and I love that, she's always saying this or something better. So she's
Yes.
like opening up to the universe, being like, okay, I surrender. There you go. Do whatever. I
Yeah.
think it is a very powerful thing if you really, because the human mind, especially the ego, is always trying
Yes.
to figure things out. This is such a human thing. Like it will have to figure things out in a logical way. So it would just even make sense. And when you have
Yes.
that kind of programming, that's not going to happen.
No,
It's not going
exactly.
to happen. So you just have to let it go and then really start collecting the evidences. And then
Yes.
actually it's yeah, it's
And
a whole
also
thing.
knowing what's going on with your money. I think so
Oof,
many
yeah.
people, and my husband was really bad for this. He was just like, I'm not checking my our bank account.
I
I'm
hope he's
not.
not listening though.
Yeah, it's fine. He's better now.
Okay.
I've worked on him. But before, he just didn't want to check. And I was like, the more that you're in it and you know what's going on, the more normal it becomes. It's like normalizing money coming and going, normalizing seeing your bank account, not thinking of this thing of like, oh, I don't want to check, like eyes closed, like, oh, what's the balance going to be? Whereas when you're on top of it, that takes away a huge amount of fear because you know exactly where you're at with your money as well.
Yes. Also, it's just really about being responsible.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah,
especially when you're an entrepreneur and you want to get at that stage, investing back into yourself. We just
yes,
talked about that too, like how you yourself are you're just your biggest asset and also your
yes,
most important one. And then
yes,
also, delegating and starting to like, whatever you're not a genius and you really want to move that towards a person who actually is in
yeah.
order to have a successful business.
And that was really hard for me actually because I think like a lot of entrepreneurs, like you're I had like control issues of like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, they won't be able to do it as good as I do it.
Yes.
And that's always a tough part about stepping back and
Yes.
kind of because you're like, no one can do it as good as me. And actually, when you find the right people, they could probably do it as good, if not better sometimes. So stepping back and like you're saying, knowing what your strengths are,
Oh,
knowing what you are good at and not good at, and just letting go of that. That's a huge part as well of
so
being able to
important.
step back. Yeah.
There's he's actually from England too. I'm on the top of my head, I can't remember his name, but he's got a podcast. He's an entrepreneur, really successful, really young. And he
Jay, is
was
it Jay Shetty?
no,
No.
it's not Jay
Oh,
Shetty.
okay.
It is I just I'm gonna link him down below.
Okay. Yeah.
But he actually said you want to hire people, and he was especially talking about even hiring people that are older than you. He was scared
Hmm.
about that at first, but
Yeah, yeah, I
really
get that.
hiring people who are such geniuses in their field, and
Mm,
how he was scared to do that at first because he would actually look like a dumb idiot,
mm,
so to say.
yeah, yeah,
But
yeah.
how he figured that when he really hired those people, even when they're so much older and everything, like how he was getting so much more successful. And
Mm,
again, I really think it is like working through your ego.
yeah.
And it actually just even makes sense hiring people who are like so good. Because he also said, and I thought that was so valuable, how he said, like, and those smart people are going to hire smart people too.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah,
this is gonna
yeah.
just have a huge ripple effect.
That's the thing as well, I find with a lot of entrepreneurs, you become successful,
Mm-hmm.
your ego grows with it. And
Yeah.
then some of them get to the point where, they are the only ones that know everything. They are
Mm-hmm.
the successful ones. And actually, I'm okay with like not knowing stuff. I'm okay with being wrong. I'm okay with being the dumbest person in the room if it means that I'm learning from other people. Like you have to literally park your ego at the door and
Yeah.
be like, okay, I've become successful in this, but the world is a big place. There's a lot of things going on. If you can't learn and grow, if you have your ego telling you you're the best, you're the most successful, that has to go. If you want to keep growing and developing yourself, which then develops your business ultimately.
That's a big one. I also
Mm,
believe that when you're like when you have that kind of mindset, your ego wants to protect you of something
mm,
because something
mm.
is just not right.
Yeah. Sometimes I feel like it's like you become successful and you become so fearful of losing that or failing in some sort of way. Whereas before you had nothing to lose, you
Mm-hmm.
get to a certain point, and I see this a lot with real estate investors. They reach like 1 million, 2 million, and then they become super fearful and they don't want to take risks because they don't want to lose what they've built up. And I've always had the mindset of if I lose everything, I would just start again. And that's
Yes.
where there's a difference between like an entrepreneur and someone who's made money, because an entrepreneur could lose everything and be like, cool, I'll just start a new business, I'll do it all again. Richard
Yes.
Branson, I read his book when I was like 18, and it was talking about him going into bankruptcy, and he just started again, and that really stuck with me, where I was like, it's just money, okay, it's
Right.
a bit stressful, but it can be made again. If you've made it once, you can make it again.
And
And I
I
think
think he made
yeah.
it even quicker then,
Oh
didn't
yeah,
he?
yeah.
Yeah,
Because
because he
you've
knew.
made all the failures. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah, that's
Ah,
that's huge for me. You have to
yeah.
be okay. I would be okay if I lost everything and I had to start working in a coffee shop to make ends meet. I know I would be building it along the side. It's just that once you have it,
Yeah.
it's not gonna disappear from you. You have that drive, you don't have that fear of failure. You're just like, let's go again.
And this is why you are your greatest and biggest asset because
Yes.
you can lose it all, but if you invest in yourself and this
Yeah.
kind of knowledge and
Yeah.
really, you know, just being confident about what you can do, you can lose it all, but you already know you can all create all of that again, probably
Yeah.
even quicker.
Even better and
Yeah,
quicker.
even
Yeah. Yeah.
better.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
By the way, I know so many like really big entrepreneurs, specifically in the States, who lost it
Mm.
all and did
Yes.
it just all over again.
That's the thing, is because once you've done it once,
Hmm.
it just becomes so kind of like normal. You're normal,
Natural. Yeah.
where some of my friends back home that have like, a lot of them have 9 to 5 jobs. They see what I'm doing is like super risky, and, like you don't know where your income's coming from month to month and stuff. But once you're used to kind of riding the roller coaster, you're just like, I'll just keep going.
Well, and also, I believe if the past couple of years have taught us anything,
Yes.
like, is that really like a 9 to 5 really quote unquote safe?
Yeah,
I don't
exactly.
think so.
Yeah,
I think we
exactly.
have been taught something better. And how about if you can then just rely on yourself? Isn't that
So yeah,
even much more safe?
one
Here we
thousand
go again.
percent. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Uh,
exactly.
I could do this for the next couple of
I
days.
know. I know. I feel like I've known you for years.
It's like it's so easy
Yeah.
to just have this conversation because it's like we speak the same language. And I talk about
Yeah.
this so often. I don't mean English. I
Yes.
mean like it's like I don't even know how to describe it. It's like we think the same
Same.
thoughts and
Yeah.
I love that so much. You have
Yeah.
to come back soon.
Yeah. I will. I will.
I love that. And again, because I think this is a really valuable lesson for women.
Hmm.
I already know I will receive questions like, why are you bringing somebody on the show doing pretty much very similar
Similar. Yeah.
things?
Yeah.
I think we just enhance power right here.
Oh,
I think,
100%.
and I have goosebumps right now all over. Like us coming together makes us even more powerful.
Yeah. And if you can't cheerlead for someone who does the same
Oh,
as you, when there a lot of people, especially in the US, are buying like Airbnbs and short-term
mhm.
rentals, and obviously there's already thousands, and I see on like a lot of forums and stuff, on Facebook groups, oh, but isn't the market like saturated? Isn't
Yeah.
the market, And I'm like, there's space for everyone.
Yes.
Like support
Yeah.
other people that are doing the same as you. It doesn't mean that you're gonna, they're all gonna
No.
go to there's enough people for everyone.
Yes.
Isn't it so much better to speak with someone that does the same as you, that you can relate, you can help each other, you can be
Yes.
like, hey, Catherine, like this is how do you feel about this? And also somebody who would happily debate you and challenge you.
No.
You don't just want to be around
Yeah.
people that are saying, yeah, I agree with everything that you say. You want
Yeah.
to have a similar mindset, but also be able to challenge each other where you think, I'm not sure I agree with that, but in a really like fun way.
No, this is just, it's like pure light, positive.
Yeah.
It is. I don't even know how to describe that, and I feel like it is so powerful. And
Mm.
as you said, there is so much more than enough for everybody.
Yeah.
And it is so good if you have people that you can connect with. And
Yeah.
I just think it really enhances the power of it. And it
Oh, yeah. Huge.
specifically for us women. This is why I really actually only work with women because
Mm.
I believe, our kind of programming hits differently. Doesn't matter where you
Yeah.
are on the world, just women are being raised different. Doesn't
Differently. Yeah,
matter
yeah,
in
that's
what,
true.
what
Yeah.
culture. And I feel like we have so much power. We have so much to give.
Yeah.
And if we can support and empower that even more,
Mm.
I know it sounds almost like cliche, but
Mm.
if we could all step into our zone of geniuses, if we could be more in our potential, all of us,
Yes.
specifically as women, this world will be a better place. I'm very
100%.
serious
Yeah.
about that because it was just, and I repeat myself, but the past couple of years have been so stressful on
Mm.
all of us,
Mm-hmm.
more on some, less on others,
Mm-hmm.
but I think it is more important in this day and age than ever before that we really empower each other. There's something
Yeah.
about that. And again, if you think like, oh, this all sounds so nice, but where do I pay my mortgage? Like in all of this is so much more abundance in
Mm.
paying your mortgage. It's
Yeah.
not just a kind of woo-woo Disney
Yeah,
movie
yeah, exactly.
wishing on
Yeah.
a star kind of thing. Like this is full hands-on entrepreneurs. I've been an entrepreneur for 16, almost 17 years. You've been an
Yeah.
entrepreneur for,
12
yeah,
years. Yeah.
more than a decade.
Yeah,
And we're
exactly.
just so young still.
Yeah. Yeah, don't look too close at the grapes.
Yeah, you know what? My son asked me a couple years ago, like, when you were little, were there still dinosaurs? I'm like, you kidding me? Okay, so talking about that. No, what I'm just trying to say, we're really hands-on, very realistic, but we also know the power of mindset. And I
Yes.
think people still have to learn that.
Yeah, and also I feel like the more the message gets out there and the more you encourage others to share the same message,
Yes.
we start to normalize, the power of mindset, the power of supporting other people, the power of, money mindset or living a life. I want as many women to know that you can have it all. You can be with your
Yes.
kids, you can make a lot of money, and you can have that family time. I want, like, I could shout it from the rooftops because I literally want everyone to know that that's possible for them. And
Yes.
so the more people we can speak to and share the same kind of message, the better, in my opinion.
I 100% agree, just like everything else you just said today. So, if people would love to learn more about you, what exactly do you offer? And also, I'm going to make sure to have all of your links down below. But where do people find you best?
So Instagram is where I am the most active. So
Yes.
that's Louise Lechat. So Lechat is the French spelling. Um, and so that's at Louise Lechat, and I offer one-on-one mentoring at the moment, and then I will be doing some kind of like master classes and stuff going forward. So
I
yeah,
love
you can
that.
find me on there.
Well, I'm following you already on Instagram and I love
Yes. And I love
it.
your account too.
Okay, so I have five more questions, which
Okay.
I really think I love those questions. I'm wondering, I'm very curious about your answers. Okay, so
Okay.
question number one, what is your most favorite food on this planet?
I would have to say, since we moved to the US, Mexican, the
Ooh.
best.
And what
Yeah.
exactly?
Like burritos, guacamole. Oh, so good. It's so good here.
I'm getting hungry right now. Thank
Yeah.
you. If you could have one day off, how would you spend it?
I would spend it with my kids, my husband, and some friends on a
Mm.
boat
Oh.
in Florida, which is what I do on my days off when I
Okay, I'm
can.
gonna invite myself. Thank you so much.
Yeah, come anytime.
No problem. Okay, what is your favorite place on earth?
That is such a good question. I think the favorite place I've been to on vacation is the Amalfi Coast in Italy. Have you been there?
Ooh.
It's
No,
so
but
beautiful. It's
yeah,
just so
Italy.
magical.
Describe it. Paint the picture.
There's just something about when you're there, like Positano and stuff, you're walking down like the old streets and like they've got all the lights on and you're eating pizza. I don't know. I love it. I didn't ever think I was going to love Italy. I was kind of like, yeah, Italy, blah, blah. And then when I went, I was like, oh, wow. Okay. I see why everyone's going on about it.
Well, the culture is different. We used to spend every summer there when I was a kid.
Oh, did
So
you?
Italy is just, I don't know. There's something magical about that
Yeah,
for
there
sure.
really is. Yeah.
And the next two questions I love the most, I have to say. What would your advice to your younger self be?
Yeah. So I love this question. I think the biggest advice I would tell her, because I was always like super driven, but I
Hmm.
would get frustrated that things weren't happening fast enough.
Ooh, yeah.
So I feel like I would tell her, like, just step by step, you will get there. I think partly I was conditioned to this because when I was younger, when we were younger, like the celebrity, the overnight success,
Ugh,
you know,
yeah.
that kind of culture. And so I really felt like, oh, I bought my first apartment at 21. And at the time, I thought that was super late. And
Ooh,
I look back now and I'm like, you were
that's
21 and you
young.
bought an apartment? Yeah, exactly. So I would tell my youngest self, just step by step, you're going to make mistakes. That's okay. And you will get to where you're going.
I'm just having goosebumps again. You talking about overnight success. I know I've used to do rants about that in previous podcast episodes because with Amazon and everything, we
Oh yeah.
almost have that overnight culture.
Oh, it's awful.
Oh, and people believe that only overnight success is valuable, like legit.
Yeah.
But first of all, it's not sustainable. Second
Mm,
of all, there's no such thing as overnight success. Never.
no. Yeah,
It just seems to,
exactly when you
it
hear
just
about
looks.
businesses
Yeah.
that that suddenly explode and people are
Mm,
like, oh, it's like they just created the website yesterday. No, they probably
aha.
had the website for like 5 years before it's got to this point. Yeah, yeah,
It's just because you just heard about them, but you don't
yeah,
know how many years and failures.
yeah,
Okay, I love that. See,
yeah.
this could go on for days. Okay, last question. Your
Yes.
greatest source of inspiration.
Oh, I hate to be cheesy here, but my kids and my husband.
Yeah, I get it. Like
They
how?
just,
Explain
because
it.
I guess when you see everything through a child's
Mm,
eyes and you see how they look at you and how they look up to you and how they ask you everything, it just inspires me to like be better for myself, but also for them. And yeah, just they motivate me every day
yeah,
to just do everything that I can and show them everything I can. I love traveling with my kids.
yeah.
I love showing them the world.
Oh,
Um, like my 5-year-old actually said earlier, she was like, we've been on so many airplanes. And I was like, yeah, we have, because I want to show you as much as I can. So yeah, so yeah, they're my kids and my husband.
That just touched my heart because also, like, little children, how they love you is the
uh,
purest,
yeah,
most real, biggest, greatest love of all times, isn't
yeah,
it?
yeah, it's the best. And they love you through your mistakes. They love
Oh,
you through, you know,
yeah.
anything. You're not no one's perfect. No
No.
one's a perfect mom. No one's, but they just, the way that they look at you, and they're just like, they see the world. You help them see the world through like your mistakes, like what you're doing, your lessons. And that's
Yeah.
like the best thing ever.
They like see you for who you are
Yeah,
and not for
100%.
like how hard you are on yourself.
Yeah, 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 exactly.
I love that. I love Louise, thank you so
Thank you so
much.
much for having me. I feel like we could speak for like hours.
I swear we would. And
Yeah.
okay, just so everybody's listening, I'm going
Yeah.
to ask you right now, you're going to come back, right?
Oh yeah, 100%.
Okay, you heard it. Everybody heard.
You have to come to Florida though and do it on a boat.
Yes, we're going to be on the boat, but I'm going to bring my whole entire family. So you better
Yes,
make some space.
100%.
Thank you so, so much. You guys, make sure to follow Louise. She, if I mean, you already know, she's just amazing. I have
Oh,
the
thank
biggest
you.
goosebumps of my life. So thank you
Oh,
so, so much. I'm going to put
thank you.
all of the links of Louise down below, and I'm going to talk to you next week. Bye.
Bye.